The fifth story, which is about the robber girl. They were driving through a great dark forest, and the golden carriage shone like a flame right in the robbers' eyes, and they couldn't bear it. "Gold! Gold!" they screamed as they came rushing out of the woods. They grabbed hold of the horses and killed the coachman, the servant, and the soldiers, and they dragged little Gerda out of the carriage. "She is lovely and fat. I bet she has been fed on nuts," said an old robber woman. She had a beard and eyebrows so big and bushy that they almost hid her eyes. "She will taste as good as a lamb." And the robber woman took a long, shining knife from her belt. It was horrible to look at. "Ouch!" screamed the old hag, for just at that moment she had been bitten in the ear by her own little daughter, whom she carried on her back. The child was such a wild and naughty creature that it was a marvel. "Ouch!" the woman cried again, and missed her chance to kill Gerda. "The girl is to play with me," declared the little robber girl, "but she is to give me her muff and her dress and sleep in my bed with me." And just to make certain that her mother had understood her, she bit her again as hard as she could. The robber woman turned and jumped into the air from the pain, and all the robbers laughed and said, "Look how she dances with her brat." "I want to drive in the carriage," cried the little robber girl, and she was allowed to, for she was terribly spoiled. She and Gerda sat inside the carriage while it was being driven along the little paths that brought it deeper and deeper into the forest. The little robber girl was as tall as Gerda, but much stronger, and her skin had been tanned by the sun. Her eyes were almost black and looked sad. She put her arms around Gerda and said, "I won't allow them to kill you, so long as you don't make me angry. You must be a princess?" "No, I am not," said Gerda. And then she told her the whole story and how much she loved little Kay. The robber girl looked very seriously at her, nodded her head, and said, "I won't allow them to kill you, even if I do get angry at you. I will do it myself." Then she dried Gerda's eyes and put her own hands inside the warm, soft muff. At last the carriage stopped. They had come to the robber castle. The walls were cracked and the windows were broken. Crows and ravens flew in and out of the big holes in the tower. Big dogs ran about in the courtyard. They looked ferocious enough to be able to eat human beings. They sprang up in the air, but they didn't bark. That wasn't allowed. In the middle of the great hall a fire burned. The smoke drifted up among the blackened rafters. How it ever got out was its own business. A big copper kettle filled with soup hung over the fire, and next to it, on spits, hares and rabbits were being roasted. "You are going to sleep with me, over here among all my little pet animals," said the little robber girl, and dragged Gerda over to a corner of the hall, where there lay some straw and some blankets. Above them, on poles, sat about 100 doves. They were asleep, but a couple opened their eyes and turned their heads when the little girls came. "They are all mine," said the girl, and grabbed one of them by its legs. The dove flapped its wings. "Kiss it," demanded the robber girl, and shoved the frightened bird right up into Gerda's face. "Up there are 2 wood pigeons," the robber girl explained as she pointed to a recess in the wall high above them that had been turned into a cage by a few wooden bars. "They would fly away if they could, but they can't." "Here is my old sweetheart, bah!" She took hold of the antlers of a reindeer that stood tied near her bed and gave them a hard pull. "One has got to hold on to him too, or he would leap away. Every evening I tickle his throat with my sharp knife. That frightens him." The little girl pulled out a knife from a crack in the wall and let its sharp point glide around the reindeer's neck. The animal backed as far away as it could in terror. That made the little robber girl laugh, and she pulled Gerda down into her bed. "Do you sleep with your knife?" asked Gerda, frightened. "I always sleep with the knife," answered the little robber girl. "One never knows what might happen. But tell me again the story of little Kay, and why you have gone out into the wide world." Gerda told her story once more, and the wood pigeons up in their cage cooed. The doves were all asleep. The little robber put one of her arms around Gerda. In her other hand she kept her knife, and fell asleep. She snored loudly. Poor Gerda didn't dare close her eyes. She didn't know whether she was going to live or die. The robbers all sat around the fire and sang while they drank. The little girl's mother was so drunk that she turned a somersault. Oh, it was a pretty sight for a little girl to see. Suddenly, one of the wood pigeons cooed, "We have seen little Kay. A white hen carried his sled. He sat in the Snow Queen's sled when she flew low over the forest. We had just come out of our eggs, and she breathed on us. All the other young ones died. We alone survived. Coo, coo." "What is it you are saying?" cried Gerda. "Where was the Snow Queen going? Do you know?" "I suppose she went to Lapland, where there always are snow and ice. But ask that reindeer that stands tied up by your bed." "Oh yes, snow and ice are always there. It is a blessed place," sighed the reindeer. "There one can jump and run about freely in the great glittering valleys. The Snow Queen keeps a summer tent there, but her castle is far to the north, near the pole, on an island called Spitzbergen." "Oh, Kay, little Kay," mumbled Gerda. "Lie still," commanded the robber girl, "or I will slit open your stomach." In the morning, Gerda told her what she had heard from the wood pigeons. The little robber girl looked quite solemn, then nodded her head and said, "I am sure it is he. I am sure." Then she turned to the reindeer and asked him if he knew where Lapland was. "Who should know that better than I?" answered the poor animal. "There I was born. There I have run across the great snowfields." And his eyes gleamed, recollecting what he had lost. "Listen," whispered the little robber girl to Gerda. "All the men are gone. Only Mama is here, and she won't leave. But in a little while she will take a drink from the big bottle, and then she will take a nap. And then I will help you." She jumped out of bed, ran over and threw her arms around her mother, pulled her beard, and said, "Oh, my own sweet billy goat, good morning." The mother tweaked her daughter's nose so that it turned both red and blue, but it was all done out of love. When the mother had drunk from the big bottle, she lay down for her mid-morning nap. Then the robber girl spoke to the reindeer. "I would have loved to tickle your throat for many a day yet, for you look so funny when I do it. But never you mind, I will let you loose so that you can run back to Lapland. But you are to take the little girl with you and bring her to the Snow Queen's palace where her playmate is. I know you have heard everything she said, for you are always eavesdropping." The reindeer leaped into the air out of pure joy. The robber's daughter lifted Gerda up on the animal's back and tied her on so she wouldn't fall off. She even gave her a little pillow to sit on. "I don't really care about your boots. You need them," she said. "It is cold where you are going. But the muff I am keeping, for it is so soft and nice. But you shan't freeze. I will give you my mother's great big mittens. They will keep you warm all the way up to your elbows. Here, put them on. Now your hands look as ugly as my mother's." Gerda cried from happiness and relief. "I don't like all your tears," scolded the little robber girl. "You should look happy now. Here are 2 loaves of bread and a ham so you won't go hungry." She said this as she tied the bread and the ham on the back of the reindeer. Then she opened the door and called all the big dogs in. She cut the rope that tethered the reindeer and said in parting, "Run along, but take good care of the little girl." Gerda waved goodbye with her great big mittens, and away they went, through the forest and across the great plains, as fast as they could. They heard the wolves howl and the ravens cry, and suddenly the sky was filled with light. "There are the old northern lights," said the reindeer. "Look how they shine." Still they went on both day and night, farther and farther north. The bread was eaten, and the ham was eaten. and then they were in Lapland.